early morning mentality is your every hour mentality. All gas, no brakes. Focus, purpose, power. Destined for the water, but confident everywhere else. A calming buzz before the storm, truth of nature itself. You can't catch lightning in a bottle. There's a limit out there, but it's not with your gear. Unrelenting power delivery. Unparalleled weight savings. Keeping you on the water, whether you run a 9.9 or outscoping your best 5. In this rare air, there's power in the silence. It's a mindset, thinking only of the things that matter and freeing your mind from the things that you trust.
Things you let me see.
Hey anglers, we're excited. We're going to Milford Lake. Twisted Cat Outdoors is going to Kansas for the first time. We're excited. Join us May 4th at Milford Lake. We can't wait to see you. It's going to be fun. That's stop number 5 on the tournament trail. Again, points are starting to kind of come together, so we're going to see how it breaks down after Kerr. And then again, we'll see you May 4th, Milford Lake, Kansas. All right, hey, we're live Monday night, 7 o'clock Central, here out of Warsaw, Illinois. And it's been a crazy few weekends, couple weeks. Just came back from the SeaArk Owners Invitational, the 13th annual down in Decatur, Alabama. And the weekend before that, we were at Cornfield Fishing Demo Days at Kentucky Lake. So finally back to reality, doing a Monday night from home. We got a special guest on tonight, actually from Alabama, Mike Mitchell. We'll bring him in a second. But again, if you have any questions about anything past, present, or coming up, ask in the comments. If you got questions tonight that you want me to ask Mike, ask in the comments. And we're going to dig in a little bit of history of Mike Mitchell. And again, just everything that's going on in the industry, and also things we got coming up again. Our next event is May 4th in 2 weeks in Milford Lake in central Kansas. So pretty excited about that. And then we're going to go to Pekin, Illinois, May 26th, Memorial Weekend. So we got 2 big events coming up, and we're excited about those. Points are starting to shape up. So Twisted Cat's been on a little bit of a break, almost a month. So we're back after it here shortly. So without further ado, let's bring in our special guest tonight. How we doing, Mike?
Pretty good, Alex. How are you?
Good. Thanks for being on the show with me.
Oh yeah, anytime, man. It's catfishing is just growing like a weed, and we like to be a small part of it. Definitely.
Yeah, so I guess a little bit. Obviously, you just fished out of my boat. We did a one-on-one with you and Brian Sanama down in Natchez and Valdelia on the Mississippi River, and that was a lot of fun, and I got to know you quite a bit then. I fished against you a little bit and have known you in the industry. But, until Catfish Conference, I didn't really know, even though we spent some time together, I still didn't realize, like, how long you've been in the sport. And talking with Ryan Casey, we were actually playing some old videos from back in the day, and wow, it looked like Jackson was in the boat, but you're in some of those Catfishing America videos. That's pretty cool. But you've been in the sport a long, long time. So kind of for everybody, give us a little bit of history and background on yourself.
Well, my dad brought me up fishing, but mainly bass, crappie, stuff like that. So when I was a teenager, I did a lot of bass tournaments, and always loved being in tournaments and competing. I think it was around 2001, somewhere in that time frame when I first heard about some catfish tournaments. The Cabela's King Cat came to Sheffield, Alabama. And, there really wasn't local tournaments back then. There was catfishermen, but most everybody was just out for food. So, it's really around 2001 I got started and fished in the first King Cat Classic that I knew about. I think we got like 25th place, the last money place in that. Pretty sure Phil King won it. I think James Patterson and Bill Dance got second. But we started in the early 2000s. I met Steve Douglas back then, and Monster Rod Holders was my first sponsor, and I've been with Steve ever since. And really, when we started coming out of the bass world, the first 50-pound catfish we caught, it just hooked me, and that's all I've done since. So, looking at right around 23 years or so, I've been strictly catfishing.
That's a long time.
Yep.
That's a long time.
We started our guide service part-time in about 2005 and just did like 2 or 3 days a month, sometimes more, sometimes less. And then we went full-time in 21 on guiding. That's all I do now is fish.
So you've been doing it for several years. Last few years, you've been doing it full time, and then your son is gotten into it also.
Yeah, he's got his captain's license, and he still works a few side jobs, but that's his dream is to fish for full time. And I'm gonna back him. And he's been last month or so, he's been fishing 3 or 4 days a week, and that's pretty busy when you're guiding because you got a day or two there. You got to catch bait and do maintenance and stuff.
Yeah. So I guess over the years, what are there some key things that changed, back in 2001 to 2010 or 2020? Like, what are some of the big changes you've seen in the sport, from whether it's guiding or tournaments or catching bigger fish? Is there some of them kind of big moments in that history of yours that is like, wow, this sport's maybe going to be something? And, obviously look at where we're at today, or just this past weekend with you winning a tournament against 180 other teams,
Right. Yeah, it's definitely grown. I would say in the last 5 years, it's grown a lot more than it has the rest of the time. And I don't know the exact reason for that, but I think a lot of that is there's a lot more products out there geared towards catfishermen. There's a lot more boats out there geared towards catfishermen. There's a lot of different tournament trail options, national trails that you can go and you can win $10,000 in one day. Whereas when I started, the first King Cat Classic that I fished was $25,000 for the whole pot, and a lot of that was prizes. And then it didn't really grow much. It was, pretty much every year that's about what it was, $25,000, and then you had Ken Freeman come along with the Bass Pro Big Cat Quest, and we fished in a lot of those. And that really helped, having some competition in the industry. And it just seems like everybody's pushing each other. And that's what I like, I'm not going to limit myself to one trail. I like, to fish everybody's trail. And I like seeing guys, work together. But then also, I think it pushes the sport to grow a little bit more than it has. In the last 4 or 5 years, I've seen that big time, with George Young, with the MRM tournaments. His stuff's really growing. Twisted Cat's really growing. King Cat's growing. Everybody's growing. And, in 4 or 5 years, or maybe less, I think a guy can make a living doing it.
Yeah, no, the money's definitely coming for sure. I know George is working on the MIP or the Vicksburg tournament. with a 1750 entry per team, and then also looking at $100,000 for first place. So I think I'm not fishing that one. I'm going to help Mr. Ramsey MC that tournament. I'm really excited about that. And that's pretty cool. Somebody's going to win 100 grand, and that's a big deal in our sport. You know what I mean? I think that's going to start seeing some of them outside people look into our sport and go, wow, these anglers, these directors are really doing something to kind of try to help build it.
Definitely. If you look at the fountains, they won 50 grand in that one single tournament last year. And then with some of the other tournaments they won, I would nearly say they won close to 125 or 150 grand last year fishing catfish tournaments.
Oh yeah. That's a big deal.
That's a good year, that's a good year if you had a good job, that's that'll pay the bill. That'll pay the bills.
Yeah. No, I think that, you got tournament winnings going up. You've got, the giveaway stuff. And like you said, you got more sponsors. I mean, a lot of, as you see on the bottom of the live here, purpose-built optics, Power Pole, SeaArk, Mossy Oak, Pro Guide, Suzuki, Marine Master, presented by SeaArk boats. I mean, these are all big players in the industry that are helping feed us. We don't just go and do 100% payback, out of the goodness of our hearts, because we just can't afford to do that. It's these sponsors that are help paying for all that stuff to do that. And like I said, it's growing. Having videographers and photographers now at these tournaments is a big deal. So we're starting to get more media. And then more media obviously draws more attention on the outside world that kind of, there's a lot of people that message me that never see or never seen these events until they see some of these cool videos in the media that we're getting out there saying, wow, look at these big catfish. You know what I'm saying? So that definitely helps.
Yeah, definitely. With the growth of social media, like TikTok and Instagram and Facebook, you really get the word out a lot better than, used to. And like when I first started, the major way to get word out was a paper. I call them a flyer or whatever you want to call them. That was the major way to get, the word out about an event, and maybe a newspaper or something. But, now it reaches so many people. It's just, and coming from the bass world, the biggest bass I ever caught was 10 pound, 13 ounces. And people see the size of these fish, there was 88 pounder weighed in, and the size of that fish, it's just, it attracts a lot of attention, and it's definitely good in a way, the way it's growing so much. People like Tyler, you had him on your podcast.
Yeah. Tyler Barnes.
My mind went blank, but anyway, people like him, and then some more people. A lot of people got like Chunky Cats got just a huge following. A lot of those people are, asking a lot of questions now about tournament catfishing.
Yeah, and what's funny is it's getting to be like now where if I'm pulling my boat or my trailer, even today, I stopped in Mount Vernon, Illinois at a gas station to get diesel in my truck, which I ran out of diesel yesterday, which is another story we'll get into later. But so I'm getting diesel this morning pretty early, and a guy runs out of the gas station. And he says, "Hey, I'm following you guys. I've been following you guys," and it was just cool. Like somebody's coming out of a gas station to talk about catfishing, and he fishes the Ohio River, and he really enjoys doing that. So that's what's kind of cool is that now almost every time it seems like I stop, I'm talking to someone about catfishing. You know what I mean? That's definitely, that wasn't happening 5 years ago,
That's right. And we'll go to these towns, like Helena or somewhere like that. And you go to fill up your boat or whatever, and you'll be in there sometimes 15 or 20 minutes talking to 3 or 4 different people, just asking you questions about the tournament and everything. So, the word's getting out at the local level and, on social media and everything.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm definitely old, so Cody.
Yeah, so Cody.
No, I'm 45. I'm 45, but I started it, when I was, in my 20s. So, I think I got a few more years left to compete against Cody. So Cody.
Yeah, and that's one thing I learned is there's, it's 2024 and there's so many techniques. There's a lot of, depending on the water that you're fishing, whether it's your bumping, your anchoring, drift, and all that stuff. And I got to fish with you for 2 days. And all I was doing was obviously doing the video stuff. You know what I mean? But one thing that I learned from you, and it's kind of, it's not like a negative thing, but you're very simplistic on how you're fishing. Like there's nothing crazy. You're not like doing anything way outside of the box. Like it's just, I mean, I remember, a couple of spots like tournament day, against Brian, we would just go spot lock. And then you would just kind of, usually people spot lock or anchor and they try to literally throw their bait as far as they can send it. And you did not do that. Like it was just the small little things. And I'm like, this is so simple. It's nothing crazy. And then you made micro adjustments and, you moved. And like I said, it was really cool to see that. And then also the people that got to watch that live, they got to see everything you were doing. And that's the goal of that live, is to show people that we're not like superheroes out there. If we can do it, you can do it. And that was pretty cool. Like I said, and again, kind of hit on, 10, 15 years ago, it seems like there's a lot more techniques now. You've got all sorts of different hooks and style of hooks, and you've got floats and rattles and different kind of weights and dragon weights and all that stuff. So like you said, it's obviously bringing more money to the sport, more products to the sport, more bling. Like even if you look at the green rods, everybody looks the color. At the SeaArk tournament this weekend, one thing I've seen is everybody had almost like these big, bright, crazy lights on their boats. And that's pretty cool. So, I mean, do you see that continuing to grow and more products? And like, do you ever still get away from the bait and get more artificial? Do you think that that'll happen?
Good fresh bait is key. So I don't really see us getting away from that. I have seen some artificial, baits that work pretty good, but if they limited you to something like that, I would be all for it. But if you have the ability to use shad, skipjack, I don't think you're gonna beat somebody with a crankbait, or whatever. But
True.
Going back to what you were saying earlier, people like Massengales always thought, well, they've got something. They've got some little trick. They got some kind of secret. Why are they winning every tournament just about if they don't win, they're up there in the top 3 that I get in. And I've won tournaments for several years, but I haven't been as consistent as I have in the last 3 or 4 years. So, I really don't think they're, and I went to their seminars before at CatCon, and and they basically said the same thing. It really is no top secret. It's just learning, to kind of think like a fish and let the fish tell you what to do. And just the rest of it, a lot of it's just confidence and patience.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's going to the, all the, like we use a lot of Dragon Master products, and, there's definitely time and place for a lot of that. I wouldn't call it gimmicks, but a lot of floats and a lot of different stuff. We are probably a little bit more simple in our approach than most people, but I see a lot of big fish getting caught on, the top water, what do you call them, spook, like lures, and I see a lot, and different baits and all that stuff. A lot of that, if you've got a lot of confidence in it, and it works for you, you need to stick with it. And simple has worked for us, a lot of times, like I know we'll probably get into it later, but we fished as simple as you possibly could during the SeaArk tournament. I don't know if you could have got any more. I mean, you could have put an anchor out. You know, we did use a trolling motor to spot lock, but other than that, we just put a piece of bait on a hook and chunked it out there. We didn't even use any sinkers.
Okay. Well, we'll get into that. We'll get into that here shortly. But let's so Jackson what's this the fancy jugs? What's he talking about?
You know, we have drugged for several years, but we were a little behind on using planer boards and stuff like that. And it's just one of those things that it's a great technique, but it's not our favorite way to fish. So he's talking about pulling planer boards. You know, one thing that that I can say is when fish are scattered or they're not really holding to anything, they're just on a flat mud bottom or whatever. You know, you can drag and you can cover a lot of ground pulling planer boards. Well, I guess, you know, we kind of associate that. Well, you can go out there and throw jugs or whatever, you know, but you're
That's
not
true.
really, you're not really focused in on anything. You're just covering a lot of ground. There is people that are very good at doing that, and when it's like say summer and fall over here on the Tennessee River is when we struggle because we're not as good at pulling boards as some of these other guys that do it. They do it year round.
Yeah, I did hear, and maybe we can kind of get into a little bit of this past weekend, but you know, I got to get down there and go out Wednesday with Justin and Tabitha a little bit, and they were dragging, had some boards out. And one thing that I noticed that was kind of different, you know, talking to some people in the area that we were fishing, is they weren't catching fish, but we were, and the fish that we were catching were just full of snails. So like this one certain area that we were at was just snails everywhere. They were snails, they were puking snails. Like I said, a lot of snails. Have you ever been in a situation where like you've seen the catfish, whether it's a tournament or just a fun day of fishing, that they're eating on something specific and they're grouped, that like that whole group of fish is kind of on that? Like, what's your thoughts on that? Whether it's a mussel bed or like what was cool about the snails is none of them were crushed at all. Not one of them. So it's like they were
we did
sucking
have
in and letting acid eat them. And
yeah. I guess what you're calling a snail, I'll probably call it a mussel. The small round shells in your live well.
no, it was actually snails, not a mussel or a clam.
Yeah. We see them eat, they eat a lot of mussels. You know, there's a lot of mussels in the river. You know, it may be the OG in me, but the old school. But I think as the fish gets bigger, they transition to a little bit bigger food. And the river is full of carp, buffalo carp, common carp, grass carp. So a lot of these 40, 50, 80, 100-pound fish, I think are looking for 1 or 2 meals a day rather than eating. Not to say they won't eat those snails and mussels and
True.
threadfin shad, but you know, I don't use terribly big bait. So if I catch like a normal size skipjack is around here is about 1 pound to 2 pounds. I'll usually cut that into about 3 or 4 pieces, which is still a big bait. But you know, a lot of the fish that we've caught in the past that spit up stuff in the live well, you know, it was off a fish that was probably in the neighborhood of 2 to 10 pounds. And I think a lot of those bigger fish, when they get to that point in life where their mouth is big enough that they can eat anything in the river just about, they switch to a bigger meal.
So do you think that it's times a year on size of bait? Because like I said, we were even throwing some giant bait and catching like even channel cats on
Yeah.
massive skipjack.
Well, I think more so than not, fish are just some days they're on and some days they're off. So if you catch them in a feeding mode, you know, as long as they can fit in their mouth, they're going to eat it. If you catch them when they're really not wanting to eat, and you got something smaller, I think sometimes it can give you an advantage. Like small bait, just kind of a snack for them. Like after you've ate a big meal and you're full, you don't want nothing big to eat. You want maybe a
True.
snack.
All right, so that's the snails I'm talking about.
Man, I've never seen those in my live well much, but I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
I
I think
mean,
they call
a
it like
ridiculous amount.
periwinkle or something other like that. But yeah.
So I don't know the correct term. That's just what I know
Yeah.
as snails. Now I've seen the
Even
mussels or the clams and all that stuff, but never like that.
yeah, even the round ones, you know, they'll swallow those whole a lot of times. And we did have some of those in our live well, but we didn't have any. We didn't have a lot of stuff in our live well, which I think it was just because, I mean, we kept that water running the whole time, and our water stayed real good and clean, and I don't think they vomited much. Periwinkle snails, yeah.
Winkles. Now I know. Penny or Perry?
Penny, Perry, I don't know.
Penny, Winkle, snails. All right.
Yeah.
Timothy had a blue this Saturday, puke up box turtle with a mud dog.
I've seen some birds. I've seen some birds get puked up. A lot of different stuff. Sometimes you get something in there you don't know what it is.
I've seen some crazy stuff. I mean, really have. Like I said, it's
deer foot.
Yeah. Especially the things that get puked up in my weigh bucket. Oh my. That's always a joke. Is who gets to clean that after the weigh-in. It's always ends up being me for some reason. Red always runs away. Tyler Barnes said he caught a lot of catfish that were full of snails, usually on the flat 6 to 10 foot, all under 15 pounds. So I think the biggest we caught was 38 that morning.
Yeah.
Harold, a zebra mussel. Now that's not a zebra mussel, but I know zebra mussels are another big thing.
Yeah, they're periwinkle or pennywinkle or something like that. I've heard it before, but yeah, I have definitely seen them spit those up, and to me, it's usually the smaller fish, 10, 15, 20 pounds. I know that's not that small, but it seems like when they get up 30, 40, 50 pounds, you just start getting bigger stuff like carp spit up.
Yeah, that's
jawbones.
true. Joe said he puked when he lost a big fish at 8:30. So let me ask you this. I have heard over the years that some anglers even target like a mussel bed. Is that something you can see on your sonar? Is that something that you've done before? And like, is there certain times a year that you're looking for mussel beds?
Me personally, I don't target them. I know if you're out in a shallow flat and you get some real hard bottom that's a little bit higher in contour, like a hump, I call them humps or whatever. A lot of times they'll have a lot of fish around them, and to say that's a mussel bed, I don't know, because I don't do a lot of diving. But even out in the main river, like when we get good flow, those mussels move around a lot, get washed around and stuff. So the little holes or depressions in the river sometimes can be really good, and they will spit up a lot of mussels. And if you're just catching for fun and releasing them right then, you can actually feel them in their stomach it just feels like rocks. They got so many mussels in there, and that they'll be, dropping a few in your boat. I don't know what you want to say.
Yeah.
It look like they got hemorrhoids or prolapse.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not a mussel fisherman as far as mussel beds go. Where we did the best was deeper spots out in a flat area. So most of the water would be 4 or 5 foot, and we are concentrating on like 9 or 10 foot.
Well, so let's back up to, when did you start kind of pre-fishing?
We did some guide trips that week, so it really wasn't, so to say, pre-fishing. Jackson did a little pre-fishing. As far as most of our pre-fishing is scanning, we don't really like to catch a lot of fish. We do 90% or more looking, and either we try to find fish or we try to find places to fish that we think fish are definitely at.
I was gonna say, you when I was with you that Friday, I don't think you didn't fish at all, besides at the very end you just did a little quick little bump down that one embankment. Other than that, you kind of just scanned all day. Pretty chill.
Yeah, that one place, I think we may have caught 2 on one place, and then during the event we caught about 5 there, 4 or 5, but it was just loaded with smaller fish.
But you knew that was the game. Is if it didn't matter if it was a 2-pounder. I mean, if you knew there were a bunch there, you could catch them. And you're right, that you would have thought them were Asians on the bottom, and they were just,
Yeah.
I mean, I had never seen nothing like it before. It was crazy. I mean, you had 3 or 4 on a couple of times. You were missing bites because you were reeling it in, and I couldn't say nothing in the background. And here's a rod over here going down, and you're reeling 2 over here. And I was like, wow, this is crazy.
Yeah, I went back and watched that later, and you would kind of point the camera over there, and the rod just be going down like crazy. But yeah, I think I probably could have sat there and caught fish all day, if maybe move around a little bit, but we probably could have caught a bunch of fish right there if we'd have kept sitting there or been there all day.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I mean, places like that, in a normal tournament where you're doing 3 or 5 fish limits, I probably wouldn't even fish that, even though I seen it during pre-fish, and I probably would have put a bait down there and caught 2 or 3, and then I wouldn't even mess with that during a tournament. But
so we got a question from Chad. Says, any tips on brackish water catfishing?
the only time we ever been is to New Orleans, and I don't think we were in brackish water. Now, during the incoming tide, we did catch a cell cat, but I've never really, been past New Orleans down that way, so I don't have any tips really. From what I hear, is saltwater is kind of heavier. Is that right? Saltwater is heavier, so it's more on the bottom. And if you're getting in brackish water, you probably need to float baits either on they got the big cat bobbers and stuff like that, or just a big bobber and fish more of the top water column.
Yep.
And I've heard people that go down there before, and they'll find these docks and fish around the top of the dock and stuff. Some of the underwater, we call them weird docks, or different things like that. But some places you can fish up in the water column. If it's brackish, either super shallow or up in the water column.
And then Nathan Trammell's saying, how do you consistently catch big fish, and what are you looking for, and where are you looking for them?
That's hard. Being consistent, I think, is the hardest part. And what am I looking for? More or less, I side scan. You've seen that, Alex. I
Oh
love
yeah.
running side scan. So I side scan until I either find what I think are big catfish on side scan, or I find places to where I think they should live, and that's just comes from a lot of experience, and it's, I won't say get lucky, but sometimes it's, you gotta be in the right place at the right time always, but uh, just using experience and uh, the right bait, the right tackle. Of course, everybody knows, I think in my mind, everybody knows, what you got to do to be successful. The right bait, the right tackle. But a lot of experience helps you. I mean, time on the water. And when we're fishing 3 fish tournaments, especially if it's a 2 over and 1 under, you know, like say go back to the winter blues or the Bama blues that we won that this year. Probably 3 hours, 4 hours into the tournament, we caught our first big fish, and it was around 58 pounds. Well, where we caught that fish, I could only think of one other area that was real similar to that area, and it was about a 10 plus mile boat run. So we went to that area, and the first spotlight we made, we got broke off, which it was rocky. So more than likely we had a bad spot or the fish got us in a rock. And then I made another move, which was, somewhere around 100 yards or so, just a small move. And that's when we got an 88 pounder there. So it's just something that clicked in my mind that said, that's where you need to go, and you can't really explain it, but
I mean, that's
it's
experience. I
just
mean, that's 20
experience.
plus years of experience. You know what I mean? That's where,
Yeah.
you learn a lot, especially time on the water. I always, kind of talk about that is, you can watch a ton of YouTube videos and TikToks and all that, but going out there on the water, that's where you really learn the most.
Yeah.
Jeffrey or Jeremy
Yeah.
Hoffman's.
And I tell people,
Go ahead. What do you tell people?
man, you froze up a little bit there. I didn't get that one.
Okay. I said you said you tell people.
Oh yeah, I tell people all the time it's the bad days when I really learned the most. If you have a tough day or tough tournament and somebody caught them, they're always somebody finds them. So
Always.
those days you really learn a lot. And like during pre-fish this week, I would say, I did some trips on Gunnersville and I was catching 4 or 5 fish in a 6-hour day, 8-hour day. And none of them over 50 pounds. Most of them are like in a 30, 40 pound class. And Jackson fished Wilson one day and he didn't have a lot of luck. And, we really didn't have the best game plan going in. It was just, I think a lot of it's just, like you said, time on the water and experience. And if you have bad days leading up to a tournament, well, don't do the same thing. Do something different. Go fishing and use all the knowledge you got.
One thing I've seen in tournaments, and I've years ago I did it a lot, and that was bad. Is you go fish a tournament and you do well, whether it's Memphis or Lake of the Ozarks or whatever, or Alabama, and you go back the next year, same time frame, and you got to go back to that spot. You know what I mean? And I think so many of us are spot anglers where once you do good on a spot, it's hard to say, well, maybe this spot's not going to be good this day a year later. And that's one thing that's helped me is, maybe looking at that spot, but don't put too much time into it. You know what I mean? Those fish are probably not going to be there a year later, with conditions that change so often.
Yeah, if you take different bodies, like we didn't really start going to the Mississippi River to like 2019, 2020. That's helped me more than anything. If you catch them on a different body of water, different conditions, Mississippi River changes daily, sometimes 5 foot, 10 foot difference in one day. So if you can master catching them on a different body of water, and somewhere like the Mississippi or the Missouri River where you got so many changes, that's really helped me at home. I know Nathan. I think Nathan asked that question. He does really well. He does really well on some of his home bodies of water. He does really well on the Coosa River. He does really well on Nickajack and in the Tennessee River. But the Coosa River fishes different than the Tennessee River, I think, and I've always struggled on the Coosa River. But when I go over there, I'll learn something new. And that's the way it was on the Mississippi River for a long time. I struggled, but I was learning a lot.
Yeah, I'd say you've learned a lot on the Mississippi. You've done well, on it.
And I had some good teachers too. I had people like Chris Stout that I got in the boat with several times. Jimmy and Mr. John, I fished some events with them. I've been bumping for a while, but I didn't do a lot of anchor fishing on the Mississippi River. Like, some of those guys really fish docks and do anchor fishing eddies and stuff like that. So, that's something that I'm still learning, and those guys really helped me out a lot.
Yeah. There were some good old boys there, them New Madrid guys. Well, they had big fish this weekend.
Yeah, they're good anywhere they go. Jimmy is an excellent bumper too. And, when we were in the boat together and with John up front, you were always learning something. And, between that and, getting in the boat with Chris Stout a few times, that really helped me a lot. And then now that we have some of these bigger events where we're spending 3 or 4 days just riding around looking, that helps me out a lot too.
Adam Danes is asking, so I guess let's go ahead because I want to know too, but kind of fill us in, Friday, Saturday, weather conditions were. Friday was some rain, some rough water, different wind directions. All that plays in, do you go to this bank or do you go to this flat, and is the wind blowing bait? You know what I mean? I guess first off, my question is, do you think that strong winds, if it's blowing and you got some rough water, is it blowing? Do you think that it's blowing bait to that bank, and then it also helps force fish to that bank?
Well, I don't have as much experience on big lakes as other people, but I've always heard that, and I've noticed it some on the Tennessee River. A river, I think current has more to do with it than anything, but we actually haven't had current to amount to anything in several weeks over here, like closer to a month. And a lot of that's due to, in the wintertime, they'll draw these pools or lakes, whatever you want to call it, between the dam. They'll draw them down for what they call winter pool. And in the spring, around the 1st April, they let them come back up to what they call summer pool. So every bit of rain that we've had, they've just used to fill up the lakes. So we really haven't had a good flow or consistent flow in a while. and it turns fish more into like a lake fish. You know, it's a river, and that's what I like to do is fish current, but you got to change your mindset a little bit when you don't have current. That's when you break out the planer boards a lot of times, but we didn't do that. But we did fish it kind of like people would fish Santee Cooper or something, where we just set up on flats and shallow water and stuff. And the
So
wind really did play a role.
I was gonna say, because I seen a picture that you posted, and I don't know if it was during the tournament, but I seen a picture where you were underneath the bridge getting out of the rain, and you said something about this isn't a bad idea or something like that. I guess go into a little bit on that post. See if I can't find it. Can you explain that?
Yeah, we had some lightning and stuff. I don't know if teams, some of the other teams probably chime in, but it didn't really get real close to us. But we seen some pretty bad lightning and some rain, heavy rain. So we were fairly close to a bridge, and at that time we had 3 really good fish on a boat. We had 2 56-pounders and a 20-pound under. So I have caught fish.
You had some really good fish.
2 56-pounders before the rain and a 33-inch fish that weighed around 20 pounds.
So are you fishing in this spot, or are you playing head games with people?
No, we went to this bridge to kind of wait out that storm, and we ended up catching 2 fish. We caught a flathead, and we caught a 13-pound under that we kept. And then when it quit raining, we moved out. We quit raining, we moved out. We caught 2 more fish after that, after the rain went through.
So let's get into a little bit more on the technique. So I heard you say when Jeremy was talking to you about your you weren't using weights. So if you're not using weights and you're spot locked and your boat's not moving, obviously I know you don't care about casting stuff too far because I've seen that and you've caught tons of fish. How are you getting this big bait out there? Kind of play through that.
We use pretty good size bait. You know, our bait probably fist size bait, skipjack, and we did have gizzard shad as well. But we're using pretty good size bait, and we were making some long casts too. You know, some short and some long. But we were limited to 6 rods, so we kept everything in the back of the boat and just made 2 casts out to each side, and then 4 rods in the back of the boat, kind of focused. There were some structure there that we were fishing, where we caught the 2 big ones, and one of the fish was on the structure, and the other one was just out on the side, just as far as you could throw it. So I'd say a lot of times, you know, our casts were in the neighborhood of 100 feet. You know, some pretty long casts. And it wasn't super deep, and it didn't have any current. You did have, you know, some wind movement. There was a good chop on the water. Bait.
So why no weights? What's the reasoning? Are you wanting your bait to be natural and floating? Like, was your bait stationary or was it actually moving?
I think my bait was probably stationary, and I don't, you know, most people run like a slip sinker rig, and you can probably, cast a little bit further without the weight on there a lot of times when you're running slip sinker rigs. I've had really good luck with no weight before. I don't know if, you know, a lot of pressure on a body of water, if fish can feel something, sometimes they'll drop it. I've always liked to use the least, and I don't know if you do this or other people do this, I like to get by with the least amount of weight possible. So if it takes 10 ounces, I use 10 ounces. If it takes 1 ounce, I use 1 ounce. And if I don't need any weight, I don't use weight.
It's interesting. I think,
but I do think
tonight, I'm telling you right now,
it,
there's gonna be people using a lot less weights out there after tonight.
Yeah, I've been doing it for a long time, and I haven't really tried to keep it a secret as far as fishing weightless. But I've been doing it a long time, and it's definitely seemed like it's puts a few more fish in my boat. I'll do it.
But
in,
hold on.
I'll slide them out.
So you're not using weights there. Tell everybody what you were doing when you were with me.
When I was with you, I was probably using two weights.
You were using 2 weights.
Yeah.
So what's your thoughts on that?
Man, that's just something I come up with kind of last minute. I had a funky rig that I thought I could cast out there a little further. You know, trying to catch multiple fish. It didn't really end up panning out, I didn't think. So I haven't done that since. I mean, we caught fish on those rigs, but I think I would have caught fish on my normal rigs. And one of my thought processes was, well, if we're fishing a lot of water that's not like straight current, it's a lot of eddies and a lot of dock water or whatever you want to call it. But so you could easily put on another 2 ounce sinker if you needed, or easily put on, you know, whatever on that second. I had two different sinker clips on there, so if I needed 8 ounces or 10 ounces or whatever. But you know, when I first started catfishing, we basically used the no roll style that slid on your line. And I remember I went to the Ohio River one time, and it was blowed out. There was a lot of current, and the heaviest sinker we had in the boat was 3 ounces, and we were putting 3 of those on our line, you know, to try to stay down. So, you know, I've learned a lot over the years, and now I've got sinkers up to 20 ounces in the boat.
Wow. Nate Morris says, doesn't bait have buoyancy? Wouldn't it float off the bottom a little bit? And you know what? That's a good point. I wonder if it is off the bottom a little bit, it gives it more of that natural, you know, that natural look to a catfish. So that could be something there.
Yeah, that's true. It does, especially shad. Shad have more buoyancy than skipjack does. Skipjack's pretty dense. I rarely do this, but I have seen people do it, dry their bait out, like instead of keep it in a cooler, just cut it up and put it in a bucket. It'd be a lot more buoyant that way. But most of the baits we use are heavy baits, and they
Gosh,
seem
I've never,
good,
that's a good one. I never thought of that. Drying it out.
Yeah. All that oil and stuff will come out like to the surface. I know one guy that does that a lot, and he does really good doing that. But
that's a good tip if anybody's watching.
He'll even go as far to cut, like, head's always been one of my favorite pieces of bait, and I think most people agree. But he'll cut his gill plates off his heads and stuff to try to make them lighter. And instead of putting it in the cooler, he'll cut it up and put it in a bucket and let it dry out, and makes it buoyant. He likes light baits, and I do that sometimes too. But especially, I don't cut them up and put it in a bucket, but I like light baits sometimes. You can get a fillet or something like that and make it a little lighter and kind of dance in that current.
Yeah, that's some good knowledge right there. Tyler Barnes said he's from here on out, he's straight hook, not even going to use a leader.
I would use a leader. I use 100-pound leader.
Coy Sneed said that's why he uses the 2-ounce Dragon Master weights 99% of the time, dragging, because it's down there where it needs to be and is less disruptive, which is good. It's true.
Yeah.
And then Mark did really, really good too. He was in 3 foot or less. 2 ounces is what they used. He likes less weight also for less hang up. So,
yeah.
So Cody said the goat fitting knowledge. That's some. I'm gonna use that. That's a tip I just learned tonight. Is drying that bait out because it's gonna definitely make it more buoyant, and I bet that's something worth trying. That's some good stuff.
Yeah, I use a lot of no weights and less hang-ups. What he said, real heavy wood, rock, but places where you don't have a lot of current, I use a lot of no weight rigs, and you don't get as hung up as much, and you don't have that sinker being pulled when you get a fish on there to get hung up. So I mean, here's my basic rig. It's just let's see, circle hook. This is a Dragon Master, and then I've got 100-pound leader, about 3 foot, and then just a crane swivel, and then I crimp. I can't find you.
Yep, there you are.
I crimped the crane swivel on there, and that's a stainless swivel. I know it's not that big, but it's probably 200-pound test. And then that's a 100-pound leader.
What liner you're using? 100-pound mono leader?
I use Andy. There's a lot of good line out there, but I like 100-pound mono, and Andy's been pretty good for me. I do a snell that's a little different than a lot of people. It's a power snell. I don't know if you've seen that tied before, but it's one that's a little bit harder to tie, but it's good.
It is. It's a good looking snell though. Jason Schneiderhan actually showed me how to tie that. So the 100-pound mono, which there is a lot of good brands out there. I've always used 80. I've actually got Andy's 100 Monster, but I use 80 Andy's, and then I used 80-pound Power Pro braid for my main line. What do you use for your main line?
I use 40-pound. I've used Andy, I've used Berkeley, and I've used the Slime line. They're all good.
You're using mono?
I do at home. Now on the Mississippi, I use braid sometimes. Anytime I'm bumping, I use braid. But at home, another thing we were doing that's different than a lot of people, and it's just the way that I started fishing, is when we threw our baits out, we didn't have any weight on there, and we also ran our reels in free spool with a clicker on. So I mean, those fish were just screaming when they took off. And I use a lever drag reel, so you got a lever and you just push that up to engage it.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes, a lot of times, I'll take the rod out of the rod holder before I even hook the fish. This depends kind of on the situation. That goes back to a lot of experience. You hook a fish in a rod holder and you're down in, say, some timber or something, that act of getting it out, it takes longer than if you had the rod in your hand already. So you get the rod in your hand, you got a really good sharp angle on that fish to get him out of whatever he's in. I use, every bite can be different, so you can do something different on a lot of fish, and we run a lot of clickers.
I noticed that when I was with you. You always had your clickers on.
And both of the big fish that we caught bit real good. So, I know those fish, if you'd had the reel locked in, they would hook themselves. I will say this, Mr. Rick caught the first one, and that fish was crazy. I mean, it was pulling a lot of drag right off the get-go. He hooked it in the rod holder, and Jackson helped him get it out. And, when you get a lot of heat on a fish, a lot of times they'll turn. He turned and come back towards the boat. And, I mean, there was no way he could keep up with that fish coming to the boat. It was almost under the boat before he got caught up to it. and we were screaming, reel, 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 because he kind of gave up on it thinking it got off, but it was just running at the boat that fast. And when it got to the boat, it pulled a lot of drag again. So it was, those shallow water fish, they fight a lot better than a deep fish.
Yeah, I got to go out last Monday with Rhett, which I've done some shallow water stuff, and that's so weird. That's Rhett right there, actually. Telling everybody make sure they subscribe. But anyways, we went out with Seth and Rhett, Seth Macalo and Seth up in pool 19 and did some shallow water fishing. And that is, I'm telling you right now, that is fun. We were in one area where you could see, and I missed it on the drone, but you could see the splash before you could even tell there was a bite. It was so much fun. But you're right. I mean, the power, like them big blues I've down in Louisiana, on the Red River, when I was catching them in that shallow flat, it's just incredible. I mean, it's just like right now. And then they take off, and you never know where they're going to go. They could come towards the boat, and you got to reel down. It's just wild.
Yeah, that's fun, and they'll be up on the surface. They do a lot of splashing a lot of times, and it's different. It's fun, and they tend to get off more. Seems like too. They're wild.
Nathan was asking Sakoti. I know Sakoti said that he runs clickers while dragging. When you're running clickers, you or Sakoti or anybody else, Nathan's asking open spool or closed. He's never tried it.
So I guess he's talking about, is he doing like a free spool? So a lot of times, like we were free spooling basically, so very little drag or no drag, but the clicker. A lot of times I'll run some drag, having that lever drag. That's why I like those reels so much, because it's got a lot more adjustment on it. Like say if I'm trying to hold an 8 ounce or a 10 ounce sinker in a lot of current, I can adjust that lever, and I'm still technically running free spool or clicker mode or whatever you want to call it, bait clicker. But yeah, like if I'm dragging, a lot of times I lock my reel in. If I'm vertical fishing, a lot of times I lock my reel in. If I'm anchor fishing, most of the time I run clickers. If I see, like Sakoti said, if I'm dragging and I'm getting a lot of short bites, I feel like if I run that clicker, it gives them a little bit longer to suck that bait on down, and I get better hookups. So if you get into a lot of flatheads, like on Gunnersville, we catch a lot of flatheads dragging, I'll run my clickers almost all the time. But I won't have that thing like in free spool. I'll have some drag on it, but it's enough to where they don't feel a lot of tension when they hit it.
That's a good thing. I'm going to try that. I'm going to try to go to fish for some big channel cats this weekend. Play with that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to try a couple things. The no weight and the dried bait.
Oh yeah, you'll do good. I know. I like catching channel cats, and we catch a lot of below the dam without no weight, and it's a blast. And I think a lot of people too. Yeah, the way he said, you can tighten the spool tension down on there, but I think a lot of people too. As far as they'll use a lot lighter rods than we do. I use extra heavy most of the time. Big Cat Fever extra heavy, and I use some heavies too. But a lot of people use like medium or medium heavy rods, and that rod's got a lot of flex, a lot of give in the tip. Could be the difference, in the way I fish is, I'll run the clicker instead of using a real light rod. But I like that. I like that heavier rod for say 60 to 80 fish, you know.
Let's see. So I had another question about Timothy Langley. What's going on, buddy? Hey, he says they were in the same area Saturday, I think up on a flat somewhere. Did the rain in the front affect you as bad as it did them after it came through? So how was your bite? Was it more of an early bite? I did talk to some people that had a really good morning and then it just died.
Yeah. We caught on our second spot of the day is when we done the best. We caught 3 of our fish. And then after the rain, during the rain, we caught 2. And after the rain, we caught 2. So I don't think it totally killed the bite, but it definitely seemed like it went downhill. But you know how it is in a tournament where you feel like 256 pounders is probably what you needed in your overs, and
Yep.
then you already had one good under that was 20 pounds. So I'm thinking in my head, if I can get 2 15-pounders, I got a good chance to win. So you kind of shift gears sometimes and do different things that you wouldn't normally do. So I don't think we wasn't on a bunch of fish to start with. We just got the right bites.
And is it an area that you fished
That makes
before?
sense.
Yeah. Is it an area you fished before?
Yeah, there's a big area that we fished before, but actually the small area where we caught the 2 best fish and our best under, so our 3 best fish, Jackson found that during pre-fish. And it was just a piece of structure inside of a big area that we have fished before, but it was crucial, him finding that during pre-fish, but we didn't have a ton of confidence in it going into the tournament, but obviously it worked out.
Yeah. I'd say it worked out good. It was a great day for you. Like I said, let's take a quick, not necessarily a break. I'm going to play a video that Rhett's been begging me to play. It's actually a video of him catching a sturgeon. I took him out of school last Monday. Hopefully I don't get in trouble for that. It's just a quick little 2-minute clip, and then we'll kind of get back in on the rest of your day this weekend. So let me know what you guys think of this clip of Rhett catching his first sturgeon. I've not even caught a sturgeon yet. So let's see if I can figure out how to play it. There we go. All right, we're back. Can you hear me?
All right.
So yeah, Rhett got to catch a sturgeon and a bunch of channel cat. We had a blast. Actually, going to try to go out hopefully this weekend and do it again. I seen
is that up there where you live?
Yeah, that's up there in pool 19. So right above my pool, which is pool 20 on the Mississippi, and there's no blue cats up there. So usually this time of year, that shallow water bite is phenomenal, and there's just so many big channel cats up there, and we just lucked into a sturgeon. So it's funny. It was a cool shot of the sturgeon jumping, and then right when we net it, Rhett says, "I don't want to hold that one." So that's kind of funny, but it was cool seeing a fish like that peel drag. I mean, out of that Dakota 600, just stripping. I didn't know we'd get it to the. I mean, we were just using some small 7/0 hooks, and really, I think it was just a little piece of shad actually. So that was the first for me, especially in that area. But it was pretty cool to see that, and especially your 10-year-old son. So hopefully that right there has hooked him, and he's all in from here on out. So how did you get Jackson into it?
That'll definitely do it. I think my internet ain't great. You're breaking up just a little bit.
Well, how did you get Jackson into it?
Well, I was taking all my kids at a very young age, and I can remember, like you were saying about Rhett, I can remember catching a real big fish with Jackson when he was probably 3 or 4 years old in the boat, and him just start crying because he was scared of it, But he caught a 70-pounder when he was like 6 years old, just left it in the rod holder and let him reel in the rod holder. And I knew, everybody's not like this. All my kids don't like to fish like he does, but if we went out and had a bad day, we'd fish all day long, maybe not catch anything. And when we got home, he wanted to go fish in a pond. We were living by a pond at that time. So I knew, he was, some people like it and some people don't, but it wasn't really nothing that I did. I think it was other than being in your blood, like it's in my blood, but he just loved it, and he didn't have to catch fish to like it. He just liked doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing is I've not, pushed it on him, and it's just, when they want to go out there, that's a really cool feeling. A 10-year-old saying, "Hey, I want to go fishing," and then especially this time of year, getting them on some good fish, and then getting the lucky sturgeon bite. So had another question about fishing a spot before a tournament, or do you do more scanning? So obviously, I think we kind of hit on that earlier that you're more of a scanning, pre-fishing type of guy than, putting a bunch of bait in the water. And like I said, as a director, I've seen a lot of that over the years. So, some people just go to a tournament. If they want to win it, they're going to go fish hard every day because they might catch a personal best, and they're just doing it because they love it. And then some anglers are more serious and they won't even put bait there. A lot of people I've heard are using like the clips or they tie their bait on. They don't use hooks. And actually talked to Roger Gerloff once where he had a fish come pretty close to the boat or surface up there before it let go because it just held onto that bait. You ever tie baits or clip baits and not use hooks?
Yeah, we've done that, especially bumping. We've clipped on baits. We did that at Alton. We had a third place last year at Alton, and we did that the day before, and we actually had 6 or 7 good bites, and clipped on baits. Gave us a little bit of confidence in that area. And, I don't like to catch them the day before, but sometimes, you can go. What I'll do a lot of times when I do fish, as far as, using hooks and baits during pre-fish, is I do a lot of stuff that I think that I wouldn't do in the tournament. So I try stuff that I think probably not going to work, or something that's kind of out there or different, like maybe fishing 3 foot on a sand flat that has no current on it or something like that. I'll try to eliminate a lot of stuff that I think's not going to work, And then if it works, I've got something to fall back on. But my key areas or what I really think I'm going to do, I leave that stuff alone. I might I might go in there and mark a lot of structure, mark a lot of, places that I think I need to definitely fish in the tournament, but I'm not going to fish it. And I know people that fish it every day and they still do well, but it hasn't worked out good for me doing that. I know
Set and hook. Go ahead.
I fished a tournament out of Cape one time that you and Charles did real well on. The first day you are leading the tournament real well, with some big weights. And I actually went out the day before that tournament and caught a 90-pounder in the area that I was wanting to fish. And it actually upset me that I caught that 90-pounder the day before the tournament, because I'd rather not catch one at all than catch it the day before the tournament like that, even though it was 90 pounds.
Man, that area has a lot of good fish. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, what was your big fish at my championship 2 years ago in Cape? Didn't you have one over 90 or 100 or
97 and some change, and spit up about 3 or 4 pounds in the live well.
Yeah, I mean, I've caught a lot of big fish. There's been a lot of big fish out of that whole area. I really love that area. So setting hooks and crossing eyes is asking, how do you clip on baits? Are you using, I've heard a lot of different things, from just a simple, like a sinker slide. They're tying a knot on that and then just clipping their bait on that. Like, what's your technique?
Well, in bumping or a lot of current, a lot of times I'll just use the kind of like a sinker slide, or more of the inline where you got the swivel and the, what do you call those, McMahon clip or whatever?
Yeah,
and just
clip.
put it through. Just put it through both lips, just like if you're going to hook one, so it doesn't roll and twist so much in the current. And it'll take a good, to get that bait off of that, they just about have to pull drag. So you can kind of tell, you get an idea anyway of how big the fish is when they bite.
Yeah, Richard said zip tie. I know some people that use zip ties also.
Yeah, I've never tried that. I've used the Plano sinker slides, and I've used just the swivel and the clip, the McMahon clip, or whatever you call them. I got some somewhere.
Tom Stoll said that fish in Cape spit up what looked like the remains of a carp. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's a small one, but you could, you can get a lot bigger clips than that, or whatever you want.
Oh yeah.
Hook them through the eyeballs or the lips or whatever.
And then Clyde Hood, Mr. Hood, is in the house tonight. He said, what's the main type of structure that you key in on the Mississippi? So, is it rock revetment to the mud? Is it wood? Is it rock piles or dikes? Or what's your structure that you look for if you're looking for structure on the Mississippi?
I like wood. I mean, wood is definitely my favorite structure. It don't matter where I'm at. But Mississippi is a lot more current orientated than anywhere you're going to fish. So current is key. You don't really have to have any structure if you got the right current. Place, say maybe if you just break it down to a 1 mile stretch. Well, in that 1 mile stretch, there may be only really 1 or 2 areas that's fishable or has the right current on it. By meaning the right current is something that you can fish. It's something, the fish can hold there and get food. So maybe, 1 to 3 mile per hour, whatever it is. But a lot of places in the Mississippi River, you can't hardly fish because of the amount of current. The fish won't be there. So having the right current is as as important or more important than anything on the Mississippi River. But going back to, like home or anywhere else, wood is definitely my favorite. But we went fishing wood, during that tournament, the SeaArk tournament. We went fishing wood.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some wood on the Mississippi River in some of them outside bends, that's for sure. And you got to really have it together fishing that stuff. I mean, that can be bad, especially when there's current,
Yeah, you can find wood out there, and people say, well, how can that wood stay out there? But it'll stay out there in the main channel, and you can find some good places. And it's got perfect current on it. It's got cover, and you just got to figure out how you can fish it and get your bait through there, without getting hung up so much that you're frustrated or, and that takes a lot of, I know you've done that a lot, but that takes a lot of, I know one of the areas you fished a lot, and I fished it too. It's just like a jungle down there. You got trees coming up 20 foot off the bottom, and it's almost impossible to get a bait through, but there's guys that can do it. I can do it a little bit sometimes.
Dude, I'll tell you what, that and I'm sure there's other areas worse than that, but I'm telling you, that stretch is a jungle. I mean, I'm going to put that on my map as the jungle because it is that crazy. I mean, but it holds fish you wouldn't believe, and it's a
sometimes
big area.
You just got to kind of fish. Yeah. Yeah, we actually call that the jungle bank. Me and Jackson do. And sometimes you can fish the edges of stuff like that, and still do real well if you can't get a bait through there. But I wish I could spot lock more in places like that and fish heavy weights, but a lot of times it's just so much current, it's almost impossible to fish any other way than bump.
Yeah, I don't know. I've got the new power pole now, so hopefully I'll see if that oh, we lost Mike for a second. There we go. Can you hear me?
Yeah. I don't know what's going on with my Wi-Fi. Probably kids playing video games.
Them darn kids. No, so I fished it several times. We tried to spot lock, couldn't spot lock. There's so much current on the outside bend there. And then we had some issues with the battery or something came unhooked. So we threw anchor once there. That was a bad idea. We never got that anchor back, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
I mean, the amount of current, I don't know if there's a trolling motor that'll hold you there. But yeah, so I'm excited to try that new power pole. All these new brushless motors are supposed to have a ton of power. So if you could spot lock in some of those areas, that's a game changer. Because then you could really, I've got it. When I went through there, I'm always kind of marking going down and on side scan, and it's just like it's the jungle. And I just can mark some of those spots. And then if you can get above them, the problem is if you can't stop the boat, it's hard to fish them. But if you could spot lock and fish those areas,
right,
I think that'd be awesome. Jackson said it's his favorite bank in the whole river. Well, Jackson, you better stay out of that bank. I know a Cat Masters tournament. Do you remember that a couple years ago? Me and Blair went down there. We were the only boat there. This is like on a Wednesday. And we just marked a bunch of stuff. And I'm like, this is something like you dream about, a bank like this. And we didn't go back. I'm like, we don't even need to mess around. Like, this is it. And we showed up that morning because it was a good clip from Helena. And we show up that morning and I think you were there, John Berglund, Andy Needham, and Brad Stout. Stringers. I mean, there was 5 or 6, 7, 8 boats there, but it's a massive area. I mean, you could have probably 20 boats fish that whole area. It's just full of stuff. But I think all of us were in the top 10 on day one from that stretch, which is pretty wild.
Yeah.
I think all of us had over 100 pounds.
Yeah, there was definitely a lot of good fish, in that stretch. And, it's crazy. Sometimes you'll pre-fish tournaments and you try to go as far away as you can possibly go because you think that nobody else found it or nobody's going to go that far. And then you get there tournament morning and there's 3 or 4 more boats, in the area you wanted to fish, because everybody, a lot of times they fish a lot of the same stuff, and they're good at finding stuff like that. And sometimes I think we overlook stuff that we should be fishing a lot closer to the boat ramp because we want to get away from everybody. But
100%.
everybody's really good now. And, I think as we go on, like you say, and the payouts get bigger and bigger, you're just going to see people getting better and better. And there's new things, like you said, coming out that we can do. And even though I'm older, I'm the OG now, I still got to learn something every time I go out.
Oh, 100%. And John Berglund, you stay out of that stretch too, okay? All of you guys out of that stretch. Dude, I'm going to tell you, that morning, it was a beautiful, beautiful morning. And I remember we showed up. Maybe we were the second boat, or maybe there were 2 other boats further down. And then a couple more showed up. And I was just like devastated. Like, I thought that this is like, I found something that nobody's ever seen before. And then I'm like, crap, now it's a shootout. And then Berglund, I think, said he got second place at that event on that bank. We watched him catch the 70 plus. But again, you get a fish hooked up on that area, and you better be ready to rock and roll, or you'll lose it. For sure.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of the places I fish, and I tell people, I call it putting the heat on them. You got to put a lot of pressure on that fish to get him up off the bottom. And I see a lot of people do it, and I do it too. Turn the trolling motor off too quick before you got that fish off the bottom, and he end up getting you in something. And Jackson lost a big fish like that in New Madrid this year. So some of it is that we're still learning how to do that more, but others is just making the right decision, and it's hard to do, perfect every time as far as when to cut the trolling motor off.
In the heat of the moment. And that's, again, I always go back to teams. That's why some of the teams that stay together and fish good together are so tough to beat, because I seen a TikTok or something this morning, and it was a guy saying, it's always the same person that lost a big fish and blah, blah, blah. And you know what? There's times where when you get hooked up, you have a few seconds to have things go right. Depending if you got the trolling motor remote or your partner does, and if you hand it off or whatever. I remember one time, I think I handed it off, and who was with me hit the wrong button and spun the boat around. That was a disaster. And then, I've seen it where it almost get caught in the trolling motor, and then you had to use the big engine. I mean, things got to go perfect from the net man to who's controlling the boat. And everything, because that fish, like I said, that's where teams really excel in those areas. I don't know that you'd want Donald Moore netting your fish. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. The net man's got to be on point. The trolling motor guy's got to be on point, and the guy with the rod in his hand's got to be on point. And there's, like you said, there's a million things that can go wrong, and we're definitely at a disadvantage most of the time, especially when that fish is down in a tree or whatever, down in a rock pile, on a dock. He's got the advantage most of the time, and you got to do everything right every time. And one time it might be a 10-pounder, and one time it might be a 100-pounder. So, doing it right every time and just getting better at that, repetition, practice makes perfect, or whatever you want to say, is, a big part of the puzzle.
Yep. No, 100%. That's Nate Moore said, Donna Moore wants to challenge Mike in a one-on-one August 24th. I don't know what August 24th is. So Donna wants you to come up and fish some channel cat waters. I said, I'm sure you'll do that one of these days. He doesn't know how big OG you are, does he?
Yeah. No, I can catch channels. I mean, I'll tell you this, a lot of times at home we use spinning tackle, but a channel cat pound for pound is a very good fighter. I think they're probably one of the stronger fish out there. and I enjoy it. We got most of the fish, like say using extra heavy rods or whatever. A lot of the smaller fish, we got them just way overmatched. But if you go down in tackle size, to something, and you catching 10-pound fish, they're a lot of fun, and you got to still do everything right to catch those.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do this weekend is I'm free spooling some medium lights and throwing some dried out shad and some flats. And then once I see that splash and the line start sizzling to the center, that's when I'll lock it in. That'll be fun. I'm excited. I'm trying to get some guys to come up here.
But I'm breaking up.
You're losing me? You gotta get them kids off the games. Tell them that you're on a podcast. Yeah, I'm trying to get some people this Saturday want to come up and play in Pool 19. So let me know if anybody's interested in that. A little friendly, fun get together. I'd reached out to Donald Moore. I'm not sure he's a little nervous. So can you still hear me or no? You're cutting out.
You're cutting out some, but I heard the last little bit. You're trying to get some people to come up. We're actually going. Well, I've got to work. I've got to fish, but Jackson's going to come up and pre-fish a little bit for the Alton tournament. There's a King Cat Alton
this
tournament
weekend.
we're going to fish this Saturday. Yep, and we're looking forward to that because Ryan Casey and them and his guides. Show Me Catfishing guides, they have been catching a lot of big fish up there.
A lot of big fish. I know Wally Meyer's been on fire. I just seen some pictures actually this weekend that Wally's been catching. Derek just said, what temperature do you head
PB,
shallow? Go ahead. Jackson's PB what?
Jackson's PB is 83, so he's wanting to bust that.
That'd be the place to do it. I've only weighed 3 fish over 100 pounds, and they've all been from there. Derek's saying, what temperature do you head for the shallow water? Is it temperature and a mix of sun? Do you believe that sun matters too? If it's a sunny day?
Yeah, you're still breaking up on me. I don't know. I guess my internet's crapping out, but temperature plays a big role. We fished a lot of creeks where you'd find 3 or 4 or 5 degree temperature difference. A lot of times when we're fishing shallow water, I think the fish are feeding a lot of times, so we're trying to find some kind of highway for them or a hump or something for them to stage around, piece of structure. Water temp, I don't think this week was a big difference in the main river versus in the shallow flats. It may have been just a touch cooler, if anything, because we had some cold nights. But some days you definitely see that shallow water warm up faster. I think it makes a difference, but it's not something that I key in on that often, other than the creeks and stuff where you got a big 4, 5, 6 degree difference in the wintertime or something like that.
Yeah, and then like I said, you always hear people talk about the sun, so if it's this time of year or if the water temp is that perfect, does sun make it even that much better? That sun beating down on the water? Did you hear me?
Yeah, definitely.
There you go.
Yeah, but I don't know why I'm breaking up. But anyway, definitely the sun on that muddy water, muddy, shallow water, sun will warm it up in a hurry. And if you're seeing a lot of bait Bait by bait, I mean most of the time shad. If you're seeing a lot of bait in that water, yeah, it's a good place to look for fish, and you won't always mark fish. I do run 455 on my hummingbird unit in shallow water. That seems like it helps me out. Uh,
So go
and I
ahead and
got a few things that I do.
explain why you run at 455 and shallow.
More so because I think it's the soft bottom. You know, soft bottom, a lot of weeds and stuff like that. That 455 is stronger and it gets out better on a soft bottom, and you don't see the detail like you do on Mega as far as like seeing limbs and stuff, but you see the fish pop out better. And that's more what I'm looking at when I'm fishing that mud, shallow, flat, mud bottom. It's just you look for hard places which pop out good, and you look for fish and ditches, stuff like that. But
let's see. Any other
do you
questions you all
run?
have?
I mean,
In the time, go ahead.
do you run? I mean, I run both, but do you run like say in the Mississippi River? A lot of times when you got a lot of mud and current, I'll run 455 more than I do Mega. At home, I run Mega mostly, but you know, I run both of them, and I do a little bit of adjustments on sensitivity and stuff like that. But I think most people do that. I don't know.
Yeah, everybody's different. I mean, you got some people that run it on auto. No, I definitely have, I'll change just depending on water clarity, how if there's a ton of moving water, if there's bubbles in the water, if you're close to
Yeah.
a dam, especially if there's a lot of trash in the water. I mean, that can really affect what you're seeing. I went to Garmin last year, so I had Lowrance before that. Really liked my Lowrance units. I love the Garmin units. I think everybody always, it's like a Chevy, Ford, Dodge. I think all the units are great. I think it's what unit works for you. You know what I mean? Do you need to match your trolling motor because you do a bunch of dragging, or
Yeah.
for me, the Garmin's working out. It's got some features that I like. Again, I use a lot of side imaging. I haven't used a hummingbird since my Onyx that I could cook eggs with because it always got so hot. Like I said, I love the Lowrance and I really like the Garmin. So so far it's been really good to me. And I just got Live Scope a few weeks ago and been playing with that, which that's pretty cool too. Do you have Live Scope? Do you have any kind of Live Scope?
Yeah, I'm pretty much, you're still breaking up, but I'm pretty much a hummingbird guy for the most part, but I do see some advantages, with the Garmin, being in your boat and being in Ray's boat a little bit, the Garmin, I see some advantages there on, you almost need one of every one sometimes, the Lowrance guys, I think sometimes they have a little bit better 2D imaging on Lowrance. And sometimes on the Mississippi River, we use 2D more than we use anything. And,
and that's so
a lot of it's personal preference, but
100%. One thing that was really tough for me to learn is going from Lowrance 2D that I use a lot, because mainly I'm using 2D or side imaging, and the 2D on Lowrance was excellent. It showed a lot of fish. It showed big fish. Like you could definitely tell if it was a catfish. One thing on Garmin that's tough for me to learn is the fish don't look big on there. You know what I mean? It's just a lot different look than the Lowrance had. And last September, I always bring Brian up. I messaged Brian because I just seen a bunch of big fish, but they weren't big on the 2D on the Garmin like I were used to. And I'm like, so I sent a picture message to Brian because he's got Garmin. He's like, yeah, there's just a bunch of carp. So turned around, knocked 2 down real quick, catfish. And it really showed me what those catfish on the Garmin look like. But again, like I said, you're right. I think you see a lot of bass guys going to multiple units because they like the side imaging on Humminbird. They like the live scope and the mapping or whatever on Garmin. They like the 2D on Lowrance. So, but that gets kind of tough because then you kind of got to turn off and shut off transducers, and then you got live scope now. So I wonder if that'll be a game changer. So I'm going to do some playing with the live scope. I'm excited about that, and I'll share my journey in the next few months as I do some videos and stuff on live scope.
Yeah, whatever unit you pick, one of my suggestions would be definitely go and listen to some of the guys, like do a seminar or something that are experts, people that work for the company or whatever. I've done that before, and it taught me some things on my Humminbird that, I thought I pretty much had it figured out, but, they taught me some things that's helped me. So if you're a Garmin guy, go to some of them seminars, or, Dry Creek here is one of my sponsors, and they deal a lot with Humminbird. And, so I've been to a couple there, and it's, you can teach an old dog new tricks.
You can, and I'll tell you what, that's something that I'm considering myself old now, but I'm 38. But to keep up, or as both of us, as we get older, you got to keep up with that younger generation, like what's happening in the bass world. The younger generation is really taking it over. I was at Cornfield Demo Days 2 weekends ago. Hammerhead Sonar was there, which he installed my live scope. He put these units called the visualizer, which goes between your black box and your power, and it takes it from 12 volts to 28 volts. So your live scope Garmin can go up to 32 volts. So it ups that power and gives you a much clearer picture. So that's what he installed that on both my units. And he also had his boat there. So we were playing with my live scope on the front of the boat while I have it in perspective mode, which gives you like a 160-degree shot. And then I have it in forward facing on the back of the boat, so if we're bumping. So I got a lot to play with that. But what he had is I walked by the dock because he was close to my boat. When I got there, he said, "Hey, check these out." He had glasses on, and he had made a post a few weeks ago, and I thought, he's just joking. So he wasn't. So you know how on Garmin you have Active Captain. So there's an app on your phone that you download. It does all the updates. It's actually really, really nice app. And then also when you connect to your sonars, if you want to record, you can actually screen record from the app onto your phone. And it just saves to your photos exactly what you're showing, all high def. Looks really good. So in that, he also had, so he just comes out of his phone into a little box and then plugs into these glasses, actually Bluetooth to the glasses. And I tried them on, and I'm telling you right now, I would say in the next 2 to 3 years, there's going to be anglers wearing glasses looking at their sonar. So when I'm standing there and I'm looking, there's like 3 or 4 different options that you can click. One of them shows like it's up in the top left. But when you look up, it makes it like a 20-foot screen. Like it's hard to explain, but it's awesome. So I can't even imagine. I'm just thinking now we're going to be bumping, and you don't even need to have a sonar on the back of the boat. You can just have a pair of sunglasses on, looking at your screen, your live scope, or whatever you're looking at on your thing. So that's pretty wicked.
Yeah, there's a lot of new technology. That's the crappie fishermen have been using that and dominating for a long time, and I know it's gonna come to catfishing. If not, some people are doing it already. But going back to Garmin, I use a Garmin trolling motor, so I'm familiar with the Active Captain. And there's the quietness of that trolling motor. Going to a brushless trolling motor is big, and I think that helped us in this tournament because we're fishing such shallow water. And that's one thing that, if I had a tip, is try to be quiet. And Jackson found some fish in the area where we caught the fish, and he said, "But I can't catch them." He said, "I can see them I'm pretty sure they're catfish. They're big, but I can't catch them. He said, I think I'm spooking them with a big motor when I go in. So the place that we caught the 2 big fish on, we stopped about 100 yards from it and used a trolling motor to get in there. Did it help us? Hopefully, I mean, I'd like to think it did, but, the fish, especially a pressured fish where you got a big tournament like that to where, you got all that transducer noise, you got all that boat motor noise. If they don't know you there, I think it gives you an advantage.
Do you shut your transducer off?
I go and turn my ping off a lot, or go to what you call it, where you can make it go black, power saver or whatever, but it turns the ping off too.
Yeah, because have you ever?
I've done that. I've done that, and it helped. You don't know if it helps or not because I've not done it and caught fish. But I do definitely think. We did it that day, and I don't. I know the Massengales do it a lot. I've heard a lot of guys talk about it, but I think the shallower you are, the less noise you make, the less boat noise you make, the less transducer noise and all that stuff plays a bigger role. And the more pressure the fish are, a lot of times, I heard Ryan mention that on your podcast when you had Ryan. They went back to a little bit more old school anchor fishing and stuff like that because fish get conditioned to certain things. Like maybe they don't like all that rattle noise, from dragon baits, or trolling motor noise, dragon baits. But you try different things, and sometimes simple, old school, and sneaking up on fish, kind of, so to say, is more productive.
Because I have you ever been in the water when that sonar is running, that transducer, and it's just that it's a pretty loud sound underwater. So I mean, obviously fish can feel and hear that a lot better than we can. So you can imagine that would scare them. But yeah, that's another good thing you brought up. When we had our podcast with Ryan Casey, one thing that we really hit on is obviously they always get better later. The later you follow, the deeper the podcast goes. But Casey was saying he really believes that as times have, more anglers are getting involved. And it used to be bumping used to be really, really good in like the early 2000s, and then drifting. And, now he kind of thinks that the fish are starting to understand that, and the bite's changing where it's not as good. And they're going back to anchor fishing more and catching more fish. So it's like the fish are adapting, and we got to figure out a way to kind of throw them off again. And if you think about it, it does make sense. I mean, you guys are out there day in, day out, and really know what's going on too. So that's some good insight. It really is.
Yeah, I've heard him say that a couple times, and it makes a lot of sense. And I know even here, I used to do a lot of vertical fishing. I've caught fish straight up and down in 10 foot of water, and fish flopping around in a boat, and it didn't seem like it bothered, anything. But over the years, I just don't do that well doing vertical fishing in shallow water anymore. Now, if I get in, say, maybe 50, 60 foot of water, it doesn't seem like it's, that big a deal. But I think they're smart. They're a lot smarter than we give them credit for. They're
100%.
A very sensitive fish, the most sensitive fish in freshwater I know. And I think, they get conditioned, and we got to change things up a lot to give us a little bit of an advantage sometimes.
Yeah, it's funny. And Stout says that he blast the radio. Hopefully the fish think he's a ski boat, not a threat. So the year, a few years ago, the last year I fished SeaArk, I got third place, and we were having a rough morning, me and Seth McAllister. and I had a big stereo on my boat and subs, and we were just like, man, it's just not our day, and we're dragging, and I threw some big bait out, and we had some 90s hip hop, just loud as can be, just playing TikTok on her phone, just kind of over it, and 74-pound fish smoked it. So that was really shocking. We were only in about 15 foot of water, that a fish like that would hit it. And I'm talking, the music was as loud as I could have my stereo. So there had to be vibrations. And, I've talked to some anglers that fish shallow water that they'll catch a few fish, and once it stops, like, they'll move and make some noise. And in other countries, they got one of them catfish bongs that they hit the side of their boat with. So, I mean, sometimes noise might attract fish. So, like I said, everybody has their own technique, whatever works. But Stout, I would like to get on the water with you sometime, and we'll blast the radio and see if that helps or hurts. But that is funny.
Yeah. I've played the radio before and caught fish. I don't think they are always like that, but sometimes, maybe it's more so, it gives me more confidence the quieter I am. I have had fish, being an anchor fisherman, a lot of times I've had fish drop it when I go to the rod, and I feel like they heard me or felt my vibrations.
Mm-hmm.
I try to teach people that on my guide trips, to not, and you've always got somebody, that's just real loud. Well, try to be quiet. It seems like it's helped me out. I try to even make my boat a little bit quieter. I'll add mats and stuff like that to my boat.
Adam Isaac just said, he said, there's a company that makes thumpers for striper fishing. It thumps the bottom of the boat on occasion. What's your thoughts on those? Maybe something, hey, in 5 years, maybe all of us catfish boats have some thumpers on them.
Maybe. I've witnessed those striper guys, using the thumper, and a lot of them swear by it. And then you got some that are good striper fishermen that dispute it. So, it's kind of like, I guess, us and catfishing. Some of us will go out there and blast the radio, and some of us try to be quiet. But
yeah,
vibrations, I know they know we're there through vibrations, and that ticking in the transducer could be something that they get used to and hurt you in the long run.
Yeah, true. Chris said, all joking aside, congratulations on an awesome day and win. You guys are as tough as they come. Although I never met her, I can't help but think Mrs. Sexton played a big part Saturday. And absolutely, 100%. 100%. Great people.
Yeah.
Great people to know, Betty and Rick. And like I said, that's to do that on Saturday against 180 boats, and it was a really awesome deal. Proud to be a part of that. How long you been fishing with Rick?
Yeah, I don't. Somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 years, I think. Been a long time, but that's the one of the only things I can think of, in this past tournament, is we didn't have a solid game plan. We changed our game plan during blast off. Everything just worked out like it was supposed to, as far as most of the time you're always struggling to find the right fish. You fish to the last minute. You exhaust yourself thinking of what do I do next, but everything just came naturally and just fell into place. And, I think Chris is right. It was a lot of the good Lord looking down on us.
100%. 100%. Yeah, great people. What else do you have? Man, it's been 2 hours. Any other little tips, tricks, or anything you got left for us, or anybody you want to thank? before we shut it down tonight?
Well, we've got a lot of good sponsors, and Dry Creek Marine, they keep us going. Monster Rod Holders, like I said, I've been with Steve ever since I started. We're going to fish both mega bucks, me and Steve and Jackson this year. Catch the Fever rods. I can't say enough good things about them. We've been with them for somewhere around 8 years, so a long time. We've got a long relationship with most of our sponsors. We got Berry Home Solutions is out of Owensboro. That helps us out, keeps us on the road, helps us pay some of the entry fees and stuff like that. Dragon Master, we've been using those products, it's fairly new, but they're game changers. And stuff like Dragon, even though it's called Dragon Master, we use it anchor fishing, we use it bumping, we use it walking baits. These brush guards and the Bite Me float. I don't know if you can see that.
Yeah.
But that brush guard.
That's some really cool new products that they came out with.
Yeah, to give you, like, say if you're fishing very light current like we get on the Tennessee River, sometimes we can bump in situations where we wouldn't be able to bump or walk baits because you're getting a lot of current drag, with the float. And then also that brush guard too kind of acts like a prop, and it'll make your bait ride a lot smoother in a lot of current. So there's,
100%.
A lot of different things Dragon Masters come out with that ain't necessarily geared just towards dragon. We do use their products, Dragon, but we use it anchor fishing and bumping and stuff too. River Rats Reel Repair keeps our, a lot of times, especially during COVID, the reel we used wasn't even in production. So a lot of times we're buying used reels. I've got about 45 reels right now. So keeping all those working is a chore.
Yeah, Jared's
Jared does great guy. Great job on that. That's about all I've got, unless anybody's got a question or you got something,
Yeah, no, like I said, anybody watching, whether you're watching this Monday night and we're live and you're watching this later, ask the questions in the comments. Mike will be scrolling through them. I'll be scrolling through them, and I'm sure we'll get out and do maybe some fishing again. Like I said, I'm working on doing some more angler spotlights through Twisted Cat where we go jump on the boat. We just go fishing and kind of what we're doing tonight, but we make a fishing video out of it, in a on the water type deal. So really excited about that. And let's have to try to plan something. But yeah, just like Mike said, and that's what's unique and fun about this sport is he's got a lot of great sponsors that have been around a long time. And as the sport's growing, Dragon Master's a new company, Purpose Built Optics and Powerful. Some of these companies that are getting it. And even though I don't use Big Cat Fever, I own a rod company, and me and Caleb are good friends, talk a lot. And, that's what this sport's about, to kind of get people, working together to help build. And same thing with Coy and Brian, great guys. They fish a lot of the tournaments, and it's fun to fish against them too. But yeah, so they got a bunch of cool products, especially like watching those guys at ICAST come out with some new products, like it's catfishing, and catfishing is now at ICAST. That's a big deal. So that's pretty cool stuff. But yeah, so let's hopefully we'll plan something. I know Donna Moore wants to face you on some channel cat waters. Hopefully I get to have Donna Moore on this one of these Monday nights. Donna Moore is another one that's been fishing a long time. But yeah, a lot of OGs in the sport, and you were definitely one of the goats for sure. So I've enjoyed fishing with you the few days that we got to go, and hopefully we'll do it again sometime. So thank you so much for being on the show. An awesome job to get that first place win at the 13th annual SeaArk Owners Catfish Tournament. So Liz just finally rolled in. Anything else to add to the podcast?
Good job.
What are you putting a wig on? Putting a wig on the dog. So yeah, man, let's plan something. And anybody, like I said, that are watching, thanks again for watching. Next Monday night, we'll have another great guest on, I'm sure. And maybe anybody who wants to fish this. See what I deal with, Mike? Anybody that wants to maybe fish this weekend, do a little friendly competition, something fun up in Pool 19, let me know. And like I said, let's get through this week. It's going to be kind of some rough weather for the next couple days here. But if I don't see it, you'll be at the King Cat this weekend. Good luck. Hopefully you get another big W. And tell Jackson I'd like to have him on.
Yeah, Jackson's going to do all the pre-fishing, so I hope he puts me on. I'll do the catching.
Well, yeah, tell Jackson I'd like to have him on a Monday night show one of these days, too.
All righty, I will. I'm pretty sure he's watching. I've seen a few of his comments.
Yeah. Jackson, you're young and you got a big future ahead of you, man. Stay after it, stay positive, and stay fishing. And in 10 years, man, the sky's the limit. 100%. So, hey, everybody, thanks again for watching. Mike, thanks for being on. And we are out.
Thank y'all. Enjoy.